Uber and Lyft drivers reveal some of the scariest things that have happened to them on the job.
Xbox,
Twitter, Uber,
Postmates,
Netflix, MoviePass,
Google,
Facebook, eBay,
DoorDash,
Apple, Amazon, Airbnb,
The Apptrepreneur. Hey everyone, this is Kevin the Apptrepreneur, and let's not beat around the bush on this one. Driving for Uber and Lyft is one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. It is, for a myriad of reasons. And we're not even talking about just the basic stuff like, hey, you drive your car more, you are far more likely to get into a car accident or be part of a natural disaster. You're not exercising much, therefore your health can deteriorate a little bit. There's a lot of reasons Uber is overall bad for people. And yet, Uber and Lyft advertises the easiest thing in the world. Like, hey, you get into our vehicle, which really isn't their vehicle, it's your vehicle. It's like, and you drive people around, you're helping the community. Uber likes to push this narrative of you are helping the community, you are helping other people, and by helping the community, we are helping you reach your goals with a little bit of pocket change. But what a lot of drivers don't realize is that all this stuff is incredibly dangerous, and it needs to be talked about a lot more. However, before we talk about any of that, let's have a word from our sponsors, who, by the way, has a great forum and list of other gig economy jobs, some of which are much safer than Uber and Lyft. So check them out afterwards if you hear this story and it's like, I don't know if I even want to take the risk anymore. Times are changing for gig workers and the gig economy, and there are a lot more gigs from a lot more companies than there used to be. That's why when people ask me where they can go to find resources for the gig economy, I recommend gigworker.com. At this site, you can see what other gig workers are doing and discover better opportunities from industries, companies, resources, and even a forum where you can talk with other people in the gig economy. Gigworker.com is a great resource site, whether you work for Uber, Lyft, Postmates, DoorDash, TaxRabbit, Thumbtack, Upwork, whatever. There's a gig for you and there's a forum for you on gigworker.com. Gigworker.com for all your gigs. From Business Insider, Uber and Lyft drivers reveal the scariest situations they've ever encountered. So let's look into that. The stories are reflective of a tiny minority of Uber and Lyft rides, which, granted, this is not common. But for many drivers, the harrowing tales of fellow chauffeurs brutally beaten, robbed, or even killed are always front of mind. Just this week, an Arizona man who drives for Lyft was shot and killed on his 52nd wedding anniversary. A story I almost covered, but it came out too late before the weekend, and it's been a very, very hectic weekend. I almost covered this, but I didn't. So let me just actually take this one to catch up. The story was that the Lyft driver called his wife for their 52nd anniversary, and they had like a little discussion about what they were going to do that night. He said, "I love you." She said she loved him, and that was the last that anyone had heard of him. He picked up a passenger who, shot and killed him. And I mean, unfortunately, Uber and Lyft drivers are shot and killed all the time. This one was especially noteworthy because it's like, it just, the fact that it was on the 52nd wedding anniversary just highlighted the brutalness of the whole thing. And the fact that the wife was actually very, very grateful that they had to have one more phone conversation. That was just sad. So, but yeah, that happened. Before that, viral video showed a driver in New York beaten by a passenger. This list goes on and on. Lyft and Uber, for their part, have responded by adding crisis response teams and in-app panic buttons that allow drivers to call 911 and share the location with first responders. Still, drivers say the company could do more to help them keep safe, like verifying the names or identities of riders, and maybe some background checks, for that matter. We asked drivers to share some of their most harrowing stories from behind the wheel. Here's what they said. And I have not actually read any of these yet because I kind of felt like this is one that I wanted to get my raw reaction from. So this is from Paul in Los Angeles. It was 2:30 on a Friday night, or Saturday morning rather, when I got a request for a 45-plus minute ride, he said in an interview. Normally it's worth it at this time because there's no traffic. When I got to the ping, there was no one there, so I called the guy who said he was walking down the road. Sure enough, I spotted him and he hopped in. I instantly felt uncomfortable. He said he wanted to go to the Hollywood sign to party all night. I should have ended the ride right there. As we were approaching the freeway, I realized I was going to need gas, so I pulled in to fill up. When I got back in the car, he had canceled the trip. He said he would pay me $100 if I drove him and stay to party with him for a few hours, and $100 more to drive him home. I told him that was illegal and he needed to get out of my vehicle, but he didn't listen. When I told him again, he started swearing and screaming at me like a madman. I opened his door to help him out of my car, and he got even angrier. He punched me in the face, and I fell backward. Fortunately, a tow truck driver was in the station and witnessed the incident. He came over to assist, and luckily he was a big man. He dragged the passenger out of my car and held him in an arm lock while I called the police. I contacted Lyft, who said they would deactivate him and investigate. Still, I was too unsettled to drive for a few days. I'm very glad that the truck driver was there. Very common story, by the way. Because most of the time, especially at that time in the morning, there is no one around to help out. Now, in this situation, if the guy who starts getting belligerent, like, take me here, and you say, no, that's illegal, I need you to recall me on the app or whatever, and he starts swearing at you, you know what? Leave him in the car, go into the store, and call the police at that point. Don't be confrontational with these people because of what happens here. Now, again, thankfully, there was a truck driver there. If the truck driver not been there, who knows what would have happened. Now, let's look at the story of Queen, a driver in Washington, D.C. I think this is I assume this is a she, but I could be wrong. A wealthy man from a posh neighborhood who sat directly behind me went over potential serial killer scenarios, asking me how I would cope. He then became furious when I tried to reassure him about ride share safety statistics. How dare you speak condescendingly to me, he yelled. Later, he wanted to know my work schedule and how he could ensure we meet up again. We could not. I reported him and requested never to be paired up with him again. And then there's another story. Two drunk men entered the vehicle, one in front and the other in back. My dash cam was on. The one in front wanted to change his destination to a strip club but refused to put it in the app. The guy in the back began to massage my neck and shoulders while the other commented on my physique and wanted me to go to the club also. Twilight was coming and there was a torrential rain outside. The front seat driver grabbed my phone and replaced it with his phone, which meant I couldn't see the GPS. I yelled at him to give it back while the backseat driver told me to calm down and that he loved me. I was not afraid of molestation because they were both very drunk. I was afraid of an accident due to so many things getting out of control. The guy in front finally tried to reach for my wheel. I jabbed him with my elbow and pulled over. I threatened to kick them out if any more shenanigans, got my phone back and drove them to a safe place and ended the ride. Which, he probably should have kicked them out right then and there, but, well, sometimes you just got to take them to their destination. So let's look at Diego, a driver from Washington, D.C. He said, actually, maybe this was a guy. Maybe this was a guy, unless the girl happened to be particularly strong. I don't know. So Diego said, one lady refused to get out of my car after I asked her to. She was rushing me to drive faster in Washington, D.C. on a Friday evening rush hour. I explained to her that I'm not risking a ticket or an accident, but she kept complaining, so I pulled over and asked her to get out and find a different Lyft. She was very upset and refused. We were about 5 minutes from her destination, so I asked her to please be quiet and let me drive for 5 more minutes. Well, actually, all things considering, that one wasn't too bad. Now, Amanda, from Las Vegas. She has a few stories, and I can believe it. I picked up a group of 4 people from Red Rock Canyon. The Uber rider in the account was had a big Australian Shepherd, so I asked him if he wanted to sit up in front in order to have more room. He said no, but looked freaked out. The girl sat up front, the guy with the dog sits behind her, another guy in the middle, and then the brother of the girl up front is behind me in the back seat. As we get on the road, the rider asked to get out as he was feeling sick. When we eventually get back on the highway, he asks again, and I do. Then all this stuff falls out of his backpack. Finally, I ask the other passengers if he's on anything for my safety, and she says he only ate a little shrooms, which is obviously concerning to me. Once we're finally back on the road, this guy opens his door as I'm doing 50 miles per hour, so obviously I slam on the brakes and he jumps out. The guy in the middle pulls him back into the car, but he somehow ended up on my center console. We ended the ride there, and the girl gave me her number and apologized. I called the police and they responded, but getting Uber to pay the $650 worth of damage was such a headache. I'm amazed they paid anything at all. But then the second incident, I was returning a phone to a woman who left in my car, and she had been very inconsistent on meeting at certain times and locations. It was a super crowded weekend and pouring rain, so tons of traffic to get on her hotel on the Strip. When I got there, I had to wait another 20 minutes, and as I stuck my arm out the window to hand her the phone, she yanks my arm, twisting it. Meanwhile, her husband is in another car, dying laughing. Because, yeah, obviously that's funny. Let's do one more. I think this article's almost done, but you might get the drift. Eric, a driver in Orlando. He writes, I had a 6-hour ride once with tons of stops that I'm pretty sure was a drug run. He would get out of the car, get in someone else's car for a few minutes, then back in my car, then next destination. We even went to the graveyard for a few to pay respects to someone. I only made $100 on that ride since the distance traveled was not very long. Yeah, I can believe that. Luckily, Eric said he didn't feel unsafe and used a similar strategy with everyone else acting strangely. If I tried to kick some of these guys out of my car, it could have set them off, so I just go along with things. Now, actually, let's do this last one. David, a driver in Atlanta. I was at a stoplight waiting to turn left when a drunk driver slammed in the back of me. He was on his way home from his already court-mandated drunk driving classes. Yeah, okay. Oh, that was the story. I was at a stoplight waiting to turn left when a drunk driver slammed into the back of me. He was on his way home from his already court-mandated. Oh, jeez. So anyway, as you can see, and there's several more stories here as you can see, and I'm gonna link to the article below like I typically do, and you can read many of these stories yourself. However, Uber and Lyft is obviously not safe. It is very unpredictable. So my suggestions always, have a dash cam, have basic protection like pepper spray or something on you. Some say tasers, some say a firearm. I'm personally comfortable with the pepper spray, but to each his own. If you ever feel unsafe, get out of the car as soon as possible. Some people say, well, I don't want to leave my car. You know what? If you feel like your life is in danger, the car can be replaced. And, try not to antagonize the situation. Try to defuse it as best as possible. Like the first story, what stands out is the driver was antagonizing the rider. Once the rider starts shouting at me, you know what? Walk away from it. Go into the convenience store and ask him to call the cops at that point, because he's not going to cooperate, and you don't want to make the situation worse. And obviously, by confronting him that way, he did escalate it, and he got punched. And thankfully, again, the truck driver was there. However, now I'm going to pass the question on to you. What are some of your scariest moments driving for Uber and Lyft? I would love to know. So, comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe. If you enjoy my videos, consider becoming a Patreon member. It's totally optional, of course, but even as little as $1 a month goes a long way to helping the channel run smoothly and you get access to my Patreon's exclusive blog. Also, if gas prices are just a little high for you, check out the Get Upside app below. It's totally free and you get cash back on every gas purchase. If you want to see more content from me that's not rideshare related, check out my other YouTube channels, Kevin T. Rodriguez, the Apptrepreneur Vlogs, and Autograph Hound. And finally, if you want to talk to me or other fellow rideshare drivers, check us out on Facebook at the Apptrepreneur Hangouts. And as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one.